I would like to and be able to network, and then it's a lot. Yeah.
So the other two sites that you're involved with are smaller than this, or?
Number 12 school over, well, they're up to 7th grade this year. I think next year they're gonna go to 8th.
How many children do you service here?
In the afternoon, we service between probably about 60 to 70 in structured programs. That's between the ages of 6 to 14. And then in the evening, we get probably an additional 50 or 60 more during the winter. But in the summer, it could vary from like 120 kids on up. And especially with having the pool, is still very popular because they were looking at one time doing the water park like they have mostly on the other side of the city. But I think this one and Avenue D are the only pools that they have left, so they haven't decided when they're going to get rid of those.
Now,
In
is-
Genesee Valley.
Where's the pool?
The pool is
Is just
right
outside there.
Mhm.
Now, the last time I was here with a teen, when the teen empowerment had their march there a year or so ago, I noticed the big pool there, but it's empty. It was empty then. Has it been in use this summer?
Use it during
Yeah.
the summer. It's very, very active. The kids hate for it to close.
Mhm.
So, yeah.
Why are they
But,
gonna
yeah.
close it?
I mean, just after the summer season.
Oh, for the
ends. But
season.
yeah, yeah.
But it's not going to be closed.
Not
Permanently,
anytime
no.
soon. They haven't looked at doing the water park on the side of the city yet.
Mhm.
It sounds, maybe Bruce may know something more about this too, that all the elementary schools are going to 8th grade. And I see that happening with 17th school, they've added 8th grade over there,
Mhm.
Some,
7th and 8th.
but
I just wonder if that's the,
they had a few on the drawing boards to do.
yeah.
And I don't know if Argus is gonna complete all the plans. The ones that are in process, we're going forward. They haven't started yet. I think it's a question mark.
Yeah, I mean, I hadn't heard, but I keep hearing people saying, oh yeah, this school's going, already has 8th grade, or they're gonna add 8th grade.
Yeah, well, School 16, they were planning on doing it, and they'd gotten it up to 7th grade before they moved it across town. But the building would have to be completely
Mhm.
rebuilt to accommodate 7 through 8. And it didn't really make sense, so they've given in and,
It was an idea introduced by Brizard.
yeah. Which would be, I suppose if you have K through 8 or K through 6, if you do it right, it may be doable, although having been through the K through 6 junior high and then high school model myself, it seems like a good way to go, but to, take a building like 16 and try to shoehorn 7 and 8 in it.
I don't know, I've been seeing that happening, I was just curious if that was but if you say it started with Bizarre.
Are the, on a weird note along those lines, my daughter attends over at Wilson Foundation, and I know that they have a split entrance with their K through 6 and then their 7th and 8ths, because their 7th and 8ths by city policy have to go through the security screenings, whereas their K through 6 don't. So they have like 2 entrances, and they're keeping track of which students are going in. Are the other schools that have gone up to 8th have to do similar things, or like how do they handle just the entranceness of a split school?
I don't know.
That's a great question.
I since you'd said that there were a couple of other schools that had done that, I just didn't know if
17th school, they've got 3 floors, and the 3rd floor is where the 7th and 8th grade students are, and they have hallway lockers. That school's just been remodeled, so I guess it's up to date to what the standards are right now, which may change, who knows what the next thing is, but that's the way they've got it organized now. 7th and 8th on the 3rd floor, and the rest of the students on the 1st and 2nd floor.
There have been some other schools that have done this for quite a while. School 3, for example, in the K-8. They just converted School 50. They remodeled that building to to go K-8. But one of the largest challenges with the K-8 is that teachers, I'm gonna talk to this, teachers are certified generally in elementary school or in older grades, middle school, high school. And so the teachers that can teach first through sixth grade are not certified to teach seventh and eighth grade and vice versa. So you've got 7th and 8th graders, and now they're switching, so the teachers are specialized in a certain subject, English, math, science, whatever it is. And so you've got a small school, relatively small school, right, with 7th and 8th grade. You've got teachers that are certified to teach 7th or 8th grade English or 7th and 8th grade math. The students switch classes, but there aren't a whole lot of students there to fill up a whole day going to those subjects. And so what do you do with the teachers when they run out of students? That's a big logistical challenge for you can't have them teach elementary school. The elementary school teachers can't teach 7th and 8th grade.
When they had the middle school structure, then they had 6th through 8th in the middle schools, and then high school had 9th through 12, and elementary schools tended to have either pre-K or K through 5th grade. And at the time, that's Manny Rivera created that structure, and then when he came back for his second tour here in Rochester, then he dismantled the whole thing. But nationally, and New York State still has a middle school association. Nationally, there's still a middle school association, but each district decides whether they're going to have middle schools or not.
No structure is perfect, and there are pros and cons to that, and there are pros and cons to neighborhood schools. You see the pendulum swinging back and forth. I think that we're trying to get the pendulum to swing back towards neighborhood schools now. That's not a perfect solution either, because there are things that don't work well. And so, but I think that we've seen some of the deficits of not having neighborhood schools, and maybe we need to go back closer to that neighborhood school concept, I think. I mean,
How many
many of us grew up with that.
How many strands, or how many, 7th grade and 8th grades do they need to be able to have the students circulate through the various subjects? You need more than one strand, obviously, or else you can't do it. What are they?
Yeah, I mean, there's different things about class sizes. I mean, part of it is driven by union and state regs and things like that, but, so they tend to say, and I don't know what the numbers are, but I know it's in the 20-something, and then in the high schools it can be more, it can be in the 30s, I guess, but it's all the organization that the district does, and then each school has to accommodate their students and determine how many students they're going to have, how many classes in each level, and as the populations change and shift from year to year, they have to go through that every year to determine, So there isn't any real answer to that question. It's a year by year how many students are assigned to that school for each grade level, and then they have to staff accordingly and so forth.
Would an 8th grader, say, have 4 classes in their schedule, or 10 classes in their schedule, or 2 classes in their schedule, or,
But there's tends to be like 7 periods in a day.
So you need at least 7 classes worth of students really to fill out a teacher's schedule.
Yeah.
Between all of the grades, not necessarily in just a given grade, but you'd need.
Right.
Okay.
It probably fluctuates between 6 and 7 periods, and then the other period is used for something else. So.
Well, teachers usually do, I think, like 5 periods, 5
Mhm,
classes,
yeah.
and then there's planning time.
Right.
Yeah. You'll be given, 4 or 5, maybe 6, 5 preps. but not 7 or 8 or 9.
Well, okay, so then, to sort of to fill a teacher's time, you'd need, then we'll say, to
Five
groups
strands or
of,
whatever
say-
you wanna call it,
Say
yeah.
20 students, so you'd need at least 100 students in that middle school program. And so if you've got a building that only accommodates 700 students, you now have, or 500 students, you now have a fifth of your population just to get middle school.
But, and if you're trying to do it so that all the students in the junior high part of the school are from that school, the whole school's gotta grow.
Yeah.
And so you end up with 1,000 kids in the school or so to be able to accommodate a in-school junior high, basically, by my way of thinking. Because when we had it, students came from several schools to the junior high, and you had enough critical mass then to be able to support all the teachers.
And organizations, churches and agencies came in and ran
Mhm.
programs. I was just called a facilitator and coordinator who was just there to make sure that the scheduling was done and they had whatever they need, faculties in the building. But it ran very effectively, and there was programming in the buildings like 5 nights a week, and then there was one group that came on Saturday.
Do you think there's interest in community churches and other organizations to have access to buildings like that still?
I definitely think
Yeah.
so, because we're actually, when we do our Thanksgiving dinner, we have the Churches United group who come in and help to sponsor it, and they're asking what other ways can they get involved. So we're gonna be sitting down doing some of those activities. So it definitely, I think, will draw in a lot more families and a lot more parents, and that's what we're really trying to reach.
And that's why we wanted to have the first series of the Effective Black Parenting classes at the recreation centers and linked it to the schools, because then you're starting to draw the parents. Okay, you have a facility that will allow kids to be able to, utilize the gym while the parents are here. So it gave them opportunity to actually come into the rec centers. Because some people, they think rec centers are taboo or whatever, but it gives them the opportunity to come in and see what goes on in the rec centers. So that's why when we were talking about putting the program to, offering it where we would like to offer it, that's the first thing that I recommended, that we have them at the rec centers. And so that's why I said we did it last year here, but just based on space, that was the only reasoning why we're at school number 19, but we still kept it in the same area. Okay, so if any parents that are here while their kids are here play at basketball practice, we're on Mondays, they can just come on to class while their kids are at practice, and then after practice they can come and get their kids, and so it'll be, that family knit sort of thing that we're trying to do. So.
Yeah, one of the things that we often talked when we were starting the communications committee's look at the Wi-Fi thing was they're, training parents who have never seen a computer so that they can log in and see what their kids are doing at school, the remote access. That's something certainly that centers like this would be ideal for, and Swan's got a great computer facility there. So now that we know the results of the election,
Nothing changed.
nothing changed. Well, no. We do have Lovely there now.
No, I mean the school board.
Yeah, the school board didn't change.
No.
I didn't see the results.
Yeah. Same old thing.
Same.
So why didn't it change?
I don't know.
People voted on the Democratic
Yeah.
line, I think.
The obvious reason is the incumbent's got more votes, but.
Right, exactly.
Other than that,
Well,
It's a
not
trick
enough,
question.
other than that, why did they get more votes than the challengers? Like,
because it's easier just to go across the line. I mean,
Well, the interesting thing is that.
What?
That's
that
it?
I'm sure that that's a
party's
big part of
designated
it.
candidates, well, here's a you're someone who is
Yeah.
running for the office, and you can give us the
Well,
details.
I mean, one thing I can say is in this particular election cycle, I know the school board didn't get as much media publicity because it was all about the mayor's race.
Right.
And so, you know, the women's league, the women, you know, the league women,
Yeah.
you know, there weren't too many primary public forums offered. So it feels like the school was kind of left behind in all the attention. So that's one piece, not all of it, but definitely. So I'd love to see more push for public forums around all of the year, you know, all of the offices. You know, and that was something I noticed as a candidate. So.
And one interesting thing is that, Candace,
Lucas?
Lucas, was designated by the party, so that was she was one of their candidates.
So was
But
Tom
she lo-
Richards.
Yeah, but she lost the primary, just like Tom Richards lost. It's an election, Bruce.
Apparently, the
That's what
Democratic
happens in
Party
elections. Yeah,
thinks
right.
community is
Yeah,
not
they
very
slip.
strong.
Well, that's not true. The Democratic Party in the city of Rochester, like 80-some% of the voters are registered Democrats. Doesn't mean that they always vote there.
They vote
So
for people.
generally, what happens in the city is if you get designated by the party, in the past, you would pretty much always win, but more people are getting more sophisticated about running primaries. And as they do that, then they force primaries by going out and petitioning and so forth. And when they do that, there's the primaries is a Democratic Party primary, so they're still
But
Democrats.
Candace was designated
Yep.
initially,
Right.
and Cynthia Elliott was not, right?
True.
And she won.
And
True.
Liz, what happened with you? I voted for you, but I don't remember if you were on the no, in the primary, you
Yeah.
were
Yeah, I did
the
not-
Democratic, and that,
There were 10 folks running for the Democratic
Right.
ticket for 3 seats. And so I came in 5th.
Okay.
And the 3 incumbents got the highest
right,
votes.
okay.
And then
okay.
Candace and then me.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
See, we were hoping that Candace and Liz would be, the two would get.
But with all the discontent,
Well, Bruce, don't look at me, because I'm discontent.
With all the who should I look at? With
Don't
all
shoot
the
the messenger.
discontent over the results of the schools.
Well, Candace was on a different line, but what I'm
In
saying,
the general election.
In the general election.
Right. Yeah,
unfortunately,
behind.
you weren't.
Right.
Yeah, and as I say, people, you know, people have one job in a family, 2 jobs in a family, 3. It's not possible to educate yourself and have all these other things going on. So that's my feeling anyway. Just go across the Democratic line and
Well-
I know it took a good bit of effort to find out
Yeah.
about any election, you know, any of the candidates besides mayor. You actually had to work to find out this particular cycle, and it was because of the
Yeah.
sort of semi-divisiveness of the you know, Richards versus Lovely versus Alex.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, if you read city
and-
newspaper, they generally
right.
and
have a fairly balanced information on all the candidates and
Well,
all the
even-
elections and
right,
stuff.
and the resources were available if you actually went to go find them, but there wasn't very, like, there wasn't a presented to the community, like, for example, the Democrat and Chronicle used to be everybody's source of news, everybody used to get it, and they always had all of the candidates and their positions and things like that in it. Well, the you know, Channel 13 and 10, et cetera, haven't really picked up that slack.
Yeah, the TV stations and the radio stations, that's another point.
Yeah, they haven't picked up that
Bob
slack.
Smith didn't, you know, he's out now, so he didn't run his usual stuff. I didn't see anything on WDKX that, you know, the TV stations didn't do. There was really a lack of coverage, I think, except for the mayoral stuff, so.
Yeah, that's
What
right.
about the
That's something to make
DNC
noise
though?
about.
I mean, there was some stuff.
What DNC?
Well, they
I-
endorse, they
yeah.
do their endorsements and then that's it. They
No,
don't
I
have-
read articles not big ones, but about, Candace was in there. I don't know.
Well, anyway, the election's over, we know who the people are that are on the school board. So.
Whether we like it or not.
Yeah, so,
Yeah.
and my point to all the candidates was, whoever gets elected will see me and we'll see a lot of other
Yeah.
people, because those that are interested in
Mhm.
education are gonna hold their feet to the fire to say, okay, do some things that make sense and don't play silly games. So, you can go too, Bruce, you can go, I know you don't live in the city, but you go to the
Where?
school board meetings, you can voice your opinion.
Do you think the
But
school
I-
board
No.
does anything?
No, well, they do.
I think we're doing more important
Yeah.
work.
Well, I know,
to tell
and
you the truth.
that's been the case.
That's why
most
I
of the
come
time.
here
Yeah.
and not to the school board meetings.
Well, you were
Because
asking about
this
the
group
candidates, so,
has the potential of actually, I think,
yeah.
tell me I'm wrong, of doing something in the neighborhood with families
Mhm.
and kids.
Mhm.
The school board's way up here.
No, they're
They're
not.
supposed
No,
to
they're
set
not.
policy
No,
now.
they'll talk with you,
Oh, well,
I mean,
that's nice.
we've
and they
been,
give you coffee.
Mary
Yeah.
Adams.
Mary Adams, Mary Adams has been here about half the
Mary
time.
Adams is usually.
And I'm
Yeah.
hoping that we start accumulating some of our candidates
Yeah.
who, hopefully the next
So-
time around will be
Right?
better known and,
And
have
informed
much
because
more
they've been
exposure
participating in
and,
these committees, yeah.
But one thing that we also have to do is, and that's where, I think Amy does a good job, and we're gonna continue to do it, is educating the parents.
Mhm.
Okay, and you get more parents at those school board meetings. As I do my community work, I tell the parents, there's a meeting tonight, I don't care if you don't know what they're talking about, go to the meeting anyway. You know, because it's all about numbers being there, and once they see that and hear and get more educated at what's going on, then they may start to speak up a little bit at a time. But I think what our role here is, as each one has to teach one, educate the parents of what's going on. You know, we have Liz here, okay? You know, she didn't win, but she still has a lot of input to help parents understand and where they're important. You know, why don't they have sports programs in schools? Why don't they, why aren't they doing certain things? You know, we sit back, and one of my things is, if you come with a complaint, you better follow it with a solution.
Mhm.
Because you can do all the complaining, but what are you doing to actually help your child become successful?
Well,
You know,
there's.
so really
yeah.
gotta start, it's that broken window theory.
Mhm.
Start small,
Mhm.
Grab two parents at a time and explain to them, do you understand this, or what do you need help to understand various things?
That district also has that Office of Community and Parent Involvement.
Mhm.
You got Jerome Underwood, and you've got Willie Robinson.
Mhm.
yes, who just
So-
joined Location 19.
Yeah.
Did he?
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's good.
So, we should make an effort to try and bring them into these meetings.
Yeah.
Right.
Probably not all the meetings, but those are people that can tell us what their focus is, and then what we can do to help them. And
Mhm.
if there are other ideas that we have, and the community that we connect to,
Mhm.
then we can communicate that to them,
Mhm.
rather than in their office, at central office.
Mhm. Or are we trying to establish some things that we don't even know what they're looking for?
Yeah.
Like I said, with Annie being here working with families and kids and families, she could sit down and tell you, well, these are some of the things that the parents are looking for,
Mhm.
or they need help with.
Right.
Parents aren't thinking about school right now, they're thinking about, getting a meal.
Mhm.
How do they feed their kids, or get them dressed to get to school? So the school is like maybe the third thing on the list. So it's the old village, it takes a village to raise kids, and it's gonna take a committee of individuals to each one teach one a little bit at a time.
And also with regards to things getting into school board and such, I've noticed, because I've been going, just because I'm 2 blocks away where I work, I've actually been going to all the morning coffee with superintendent meetings, and I've noticed that the numbers there have been just steadily growing each time.
Yeah.
The last time was probably about half the room full
Mhm.
for the meeting.
Mhm.
And unlike the first couple where the majority of the people were or community members that, either represented an organization or, either through a group of parents or through the community. This time, that I'd say about half the people in attendance were actually just parents
Mhm.
there to voice concerns about the school and what's going on and things they've seen, and, actually to demand answers,
mhm.
which was extremely good for me to see.
Right, right.
Yeah, and that's how you got involved with this, We
Yeah.
happened to meet at one of those meetings. So it's good to try to get people
Yeah.
pulled into these types of meetings, because as much as we often have less than, the school board meetings themselves are very preordained as to what they're gonna do. They listen to the people who come and speak, and they have 3 minutes, and it's not a very effective give and take sort of thing. But we've had some meetings at the school board where they had some kind of working meetings where they were trying to get input from parents. And one of them, I recall, they had one school board member at each of, a number of tables, and parents went to the table, and they were kind of covering one particular topic at that table, but it was a really good way to get information to the school board members and get to know them,
Right, exactly.
And as much as we hear a lot of, the school board isn't doing as much as they should, most of the ones that I've met, Cynthia Elliott's probably the only one that I didn't get a chance to see much of, because she had a lot of illness or something last year. But most of the school board members that we talked to, seem pretty decent, but they, like everybody else, have only so many hours in the day, and there are more than enough problems for them to tackle than there is money to handle them. And it's the squeaky wheel gets the grease, and getting parents to be the squeaky wheel and be able to connect with school board members, I think, is one of the big things.
School board members are, and again, it's online. If you go to the district site, when you look at the school board, it tells you what schools they're assigned to. So each school board member has a certain number of schools they're assigned to. And one of the things that can be done is to ask the school board members, are you going to your schools? How often do you go to your schools? Do you know the principal's name? I mean, do you go to any of the meetings? Mary does. So we know that she's active, but we don't know about the other board members.
It's pretty inconsistent.
Yeah,
Right.
so that's one of the things that the community and parents can do to hold the school board accountable, is to say, go to your schools.
Mhm.
Tell, you need to go out there where the action is, and not just sit in the school board meetings. And then they have their school board committees. And I think in the past, and I think it's still true, that they have parents generally that sit on those
Parent liaisons.
parent liaisons as well. So to make, and Willie Robinson would be the one that knows whether they've got parents on all those committees or not.
Mhm.
And if they don't, it works to make sure they get.
Yeah, it would be really great if we can get Willie involved with these meetings, frequently. And then a lot of these things, as much as I sometimes feel like I'm spending all my time screwing around with this, there are a lot of times when the meeting comes and, gee, I didn't get a hold of this school board member or that school board member. There's always somebody you wish you had sent a notice to, and we
But what do
just-
you want to change?
What do I?
Yeah, what do you want to change to make things better?
I think it's involvement of families and parents.
Yeah.
I mean, that is the core thing.
Yeah.
And in fact, that's why they changed this theory about moving from K-6 to K-8 was all based on that theory that families are more involved in the elementary school years, but then they get less involved when you switch to later years. So there's this idea that, if you have K-8, these parents will stay engaged a little bit longer. That's one piece of the K-8 idea. But yeah, I mean, we really need to be changing the formats and the structures and our expectations of school board members to go out into the community instead of expecting parents to come
Right.
to the school board meeting, because they can't always make it.
Right.
Mhm.
And they need to change the structure so it's not, 2 minutes to talk. Who wants to, who can
To
say
say-
anything meaningful in 2 minutes?
Mhm.
Nothing.
Mhm.
Or have them respond. I mean, how many times have I spoken at school board meetings, and I get into my 2 or 3 minutes, and then, they're looking at their phones, or or maybe, I don't know where it goes. It goes into a black box. So I'd like to see the school board members respond
Mhm.
Mhm.
to what people say. Maybe there's a blog,
Mhm.
maybe there's, some kind of writing that school board members to show that they absorbed something the community was saying. So, I mean, there's a lot of ways we can rethink how to help
Well-
families feel heard.
Right, and welcomed in the schools, and I mean, that's one of the things that parents talk about, and probably at some of those meetings, is that they don't feel that they're being heard by the school, they don't
Yeah.
feel that they're welcomed in the schools.
And actually, a lot of the things that are getting brought up at those meetings are, like things you wouldn't expect to be being brought to that forum. Like, they're running out of lunches and serving cereal to the kids. Is the distance between the bus and the school part of the school? My child doesn't want to go to school because they got in a fight in that distance, but the school is saying it's not their business because of the fact that it's in that middle ground. Just really basic fundamental things.
Yeah,
And
like the buses getting there before school starts rather
Yeah.
than 15 minutes
Right.
after, which was one of the
Right.
things they covered last
and
time.
and just really just sort of you almost like you couldn't expect some of the questions that are coming up because they're just so fundamentally basic that you're like, how could this even be an issue?
Right, right.
Um,
And because to a parent, that, like I said before, the kid even gets to school.
Yeah.
The education part is, I know it's there, but it's like my child is dealing with the situation before they even get to school. Like you
Sure.
said, my child is in school, but there's not enough lunches. My child is, so it hasn't even focused on, well, my child's struggling in math.
Yeah,
Or
yeah.
My child's, they're not at that point yet, because they're trying to deal with the basic life skills of how, my child,
Yeah.
the well-being of my child, and how do we address that? And then on top of, now let's talk about subjects.
Right.
So right now, if you're looking at dealing with certain levels of parents, they're dealing with the well-being of their child right now. So how are we going to deal with that? And then once we deal with that, okay, now we can start talking a little bit more about school and how they're doing and things like that. Because a lot of that affects a child's behavior, which then is brought into the classroom, then it would just distracting to the class, and the teachers try and deal with it, and then it becomes cyclical,
Yeah, I
So-
almost feel like community comes before academics.
Oh, yeah,
You
they
know,
do.
And what are schools doing to strengthen the social life of the school? It's not a waste of money to have parties, to invite parents in, to have musical performances, to have gatherings. That helps the climate of the school. That helps people connect, that makes kids feel more comfortable. All that stuff is important, but it's sort of put to the side because
Mhm.
we're working on scores and tests.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Right,
It's like,
right,
it's
right.
crazy we're cutting this stuff off.
Right, and one of the things that I encourage parents to do, and I said, you'll take a day off to go get your hair done, you'll take a day off to go on vacation. I said, one of the things that I do, and my son, he goes, oh, my mother's here. I do drive-bys. I do drive-bys at least twice a month.
Yes.
Mhm.
I tell my boss I may come in early, when I was working at Xerox, I'm coming in early, I'll come late or whatever it is. But I stopped into my child's school.
Mhm.
I wanted to know if you're talking about his behavior, I want to see how he's acting in school. I want to see how the teacher's performing. I want to see what the counselors are talking about. I do it at least once or twice a month so that I can let them know that I'm here. I may not, I just want to let you know I'm here. I volunteer. If they have anything, going on, I'm going to volunteer.
How's your kid
some time.
doing?
He's doing, he knows. He's talking about going to Boston College, or
Right.
Harvard, so hey, he knows.
So, if we could get parents to do what you're doing,
That's the part that I was sharing with you earlier. engaging and making the parents feel
Exactly.
like they are someone. They may not know what's going on in half the subjects that their kids are being taught, because my son comes home and he asks about trigger, let's go on YouTube. You know, there's ways in which he can get the answer, but I'm the motherly, how was your day today? How was lunch today? And then dad's talking about the classes. You know, how was that? So just even working with the parents at a level in which they're at to help educate them, to bring them to a point where they feel comfortable to be able to talk to the teachers about different things. I think that's where we need to start, you know,
And I
with
would
them.
just like to elaborate on what she said. I know my two daughters, what I did rather, is that I would take off, like she said, a half day's vacation unexpectedly, and I would show up in their classroom. And I would literally sit in the back and observe them, you know, if they didn't see me, I would tell the teacher, because the teacher knew. And I would observe them. And it's amazing what you will find out what your kids are doing in school that you wouldn't tolerate at home.
Right.
And I remember, to piggyback on that, I remember my daughters couldn't wear makeup. I didn't allow it because you know how kids think they're only 12 and they think they're 18 or 21. So this particular day, I had to take an instrument for music, and when I told the teacher, you know, to have my daughter come to the door, she walks up with her full face makeup.
Next
I
top
went
model,
for-
huh?
I mean, you know, and she didn't do that again. But
How did your kids do in school?
Well, one is a nurse now, and the other one, she has her paralegal.
Okay,
And both
so
of them
we
went
got
to
two
college.
examples of here, very
Yes.
involved parents.
Right.
Kids did well in school.
Well, everybody knows that, Bruce.
Not everybody knows that.
Well, they do know that. There's
I'm
other
hoping
issues
eventually
though, that
three.
you don't even understand. That's why I've been encouraging you, read post-traumatic slave syndrome. Get some idea of what issues they're dealing with
Yep.
that have been going on for hundreds of years, that is carried forward, that makes them feel like they're not welcome there, that people don't want them there, or that the people start saying that your kids aren't smart, your kids will never succeed. Those are issues that are in the urban communities you don't see in Pittsburgh, you don't see in Brighton, you don't see in Greece. Well, you know, depending on what their populations are. But-
It's a trauma.
Yeah.
It's what they deal with, the trauma,
Right.
and how to get them
Exactly.
through those sort of things.
Exactly.
Right.
And you know, once they feel comfortable, like I did a mini clean sweep, and I ran into a group of individuals sitting on their porch, and they talked about how people don't connect with them, how they don't try to encourage them to get engaged. And then I said, well, do you go to your child's school to see how's your kids doing in school? Oh no, because my son's teacher, she don't want to listen, this and this. And I said, but you should still go. No, I don't want to deal with that teacher because I tried. I said, what subject does your child like? Well, you know, he likes gym. I said, have you ever made a connection with a gym teacher? I said, let's start with the gym teacher. If you like the gym teacher, then at least I try to encourage her to get into the school.
Yeah.
At least get into the school, even if it's just one teacher that she can relate to. Just get her into the school, and then from there, that teacher that her child's having trouble with, will start to see her more often. Okay, being there, it's like, wow, she has an interest here. What's this all about? And it's building that relationship. Okay, so it's really like you were saying, and that's what the Effective Black Parenting class is really trying to help the parents learn and understand what's so important. But then on the flip side, I think what's very important is to have the teachers to go through some sort of, not just diversity training, okay, but let them walk in their shoes, okay? I volunteered at a school at 22, and I learned that class 1 pizza party, right? And so then, you know, the kids were getting all the pizza, but one kid kept asking for pizza but wasn't eating it. So every time I would go around and say, well, do you want more pizza? Yeah, I said, but you're not eating what you have. And then one of the young ladies called me off to the side. She said, you got to understand, if he eats it, he's going to feel guilty. Why? Because his siblings don't have anything at home to eat. So what he's doing, he's saving that to take home to eat. Okay? Why is this young lady so tired every time she comes to class? You know, she's always with her head down. The teacher's yelling at her, get your head up. Well, you don't know what she had to do the night before to get food for her family, what mom or the boyfriend had to do to this young lady. So we have to learn to start walking in their shoes to understand, to break those barriers down before they can even become successful in school.
Or perhaps
So-
they had to babysit
That's
that
right.
night.
Babysit or
Charge their siblings.
sell themselves, or you just until you walk in their shoes
Mhm.
to help break some of those things. So I always say you got to start with family, And a lot of people may say, well, it's the parents. Let's look at that. Some of these kids are homeless. They don't have parents. They're living with a friend, or they're living with a grandmother who's also raising 6 or 7 of them. So it goes beyond.
Right, and it's what's really wonderful, what these folks are doing,
Mhm.
is they're role models in the community.
Right.
To let them know, hey, I can do this,
Mhm.
and so you're kind of walking them along and
Yeah.
getting, and then once they start to get there, then
Mhm.
they can help someone
Someone
else. So
else.
it's, I can't remember in the conference this weekend that we had, that they used it, there was a term that basically, continuing to help develop the community, and then help the next one, and help each other.
Right.
And and in the African-American community, it's about relationships.
It is.
It's not about
Loving
who
relation-
who
yeah.
owns this and who owns that, but it's relationships, and it's building those relationships. There's a lack of trust, because they've been, I mean, how many times have people promised things and never
Right,
delivered them, right?
exactly.
I mean, these folks know that.
Mhm.
Because they get, I mean, took me a long time to build trust in the community, because they wanted to know, they've had people like me come in and say, I'm gonna do things, and then never show up again.
Mhm.
Or they had another agenda that they didn't tell them about.
Right.
So,
Mhm.
it's not an automatic thing, and there's a reason for it.
Mhm.
It's not
Mhm.
just because they just don't like you, it's because they've had a bad experience for a long time.
Mhm.
And one of the things that we have to really get after the school board for is to try to reduce the amount of busing we've got. You can't be expecting the parents to show up every time you've got a meeting if they've got to take 2 buses to get from where they live or where they're working over to the school where their kid's going, because their kid's going to the school across town. And
Well, when they opened up 17 again,
Mhm.
when we were there, forget if it was Spezio or Vargas said, anybody that lives in the neighborhood can go to this school.
Mhm.
He almost said, this will be a neighborhood school. And he said, anybody that wants a bus, anybody can get a bus.
Mhm.
So if you live 2 blocks from the school, you didn't want your 6-year-old to walk the 2 blocks,
Mhm.
that's the way I interpreted it.
No, they definitely have, for after school, they got busing because they don't want the kids walking home to that. So they've got busing after school, so whatever, after school programs and things like that.
Yeah. For anybody, everybody.
For everybody in that school.
Right, okay.
And in terms of busing to school,
Yeah.
there's conversations people are having with Albany in terms of the reimbursement for transportation. There's a, and I don't know what it is now, it keeps changing, how many miles or so forth, because the district relies on that reimbursement to pay for transportation. And if the state doesn't reimburse them, then they're not in a big hurry to provide transportation, because it comes out of the district's pocket.
But if you had neighborhood schools, you'd have a lot less
Right,
transportation
exactly,
needs.
that's why they want to go to neighborhood schools. I mean,
Yeah.
and Ralph Spezio is a big advocate for that, that's the way 17th School was before. And he wants it running the same way as it did when he was principal there before.
Is 19 like that at all? I mean, how much of the population comes from around this neighborhood?
There is some busing, but the majority of the kids come from the neighborhood, but there
Okay,
is some
that's
busing.
good.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Because I
probably.
know some kids, I think we, over the summer, I would say that I think number 2 school, there was a grant that came through, the walking school bus.
Mhm.
Okay,
Yeah,
and
talked
as
to
we
those
did a little
people.
pilot on that walking
Oh,
school
wow.
bus, it was very interesting on how far kids have to walk.
Mhm.
Some kids live on South Plymouth Ave. I mean, South is by Kodak. I mean, it's like down like it's like they walk from that far. That's their.
Mhm.
That's a long way, you
Mhm.
know.
Mhm.
So it's by the time the kids get to school,
Yeah.
You know, it's like, whoa, that's a whole nother factor that you have to, put inside there. So, like I said, I think it goes back to the broken window theory. Start small. If we say it starts with the community, educating the parents, becoming, building those relationships. And as you build the relationships, those individuals become more stronger. Their voices become stronger. Then they can sit at a meeting, at a round table, with the school district, I say the committee, and then they're able to ask the questions. But get one of the things that I would suggest, like you said, you had them all at one point in time, and they broke them up, and they all sat at different tables. And then people, I think you should have those more often.
Where?
Yeah.
This
Where
was-
you just
this
say
was
you can't do it
downtown
every
at-
quarter, or
Where we go for the school board meetings, they had they were trying to get input from the community on various issues, and
Okay.
it really was very interesting.
Mhm.
You were at that one, right, Mary?
It was interesting.
No,
You
that-
could talk to them one-on-one, no
Mhm.
interruptions, no other people.
And we
Next part
explained
of the
when we
school
could add
board
things. that we
Yeah,
could
the
do.
school board, I guess.
Yeah.
the school board
Yeah,
sat at
we
the
were-
table,
we're
and
past
people
that
got to
time.
converse. That's nice to do, but to
Yeah,
sit
when
and
is
capture
there
that
a
information,
time
what
when
happens after.
We're adjourning.
That's
We
the
don't-
big.
We were
that's
planning
the
on,
thing.
well,
They
I
say
was
the right
figuring
things.
8:30,
Right, you
we
say
might
the right
run
things,
to,
what
we
you
said
do.
8 on the paper, but is there something that,
I have something real quick.
yeah.
Bruce was on this committee at the beginning, but the free initiative,
Mhm.
that they got all these committees focus on different things that dealing with racism. Well, there's the education committee. They're gonna do, all these committees now are gonna do focus groups. So they're organizing to do that. And they're looking for places where they can find people to be in those focus groups. I suggested that this committee and people that this committee can draw in. So I just want to let you know that that's an option. If the committee agrees they'd like to be part of that, be a focus group,
Yeah.
and bring some folks in to do that, I sort of let them know I thought that the group would want to do that. So when they start, they haven't put dates in yet, and they're still working on some things, but they thought this would be an ideal group to be one of the focus groups.
Mhm.
So I'll let you
Sounds
know
good.
as they go along. I don't attend too many of their meetings. I get their minutes and I give them input from my reading of the minutes.
Now, this is which group that you're?
This is the
Facing race, embracing
embracing equity.
The what?
Okay.
Could you repeat that?
Facing race and embracing equity. And they've got several different committees, and there's an education committee that they have that hasn't always been very functional, but it's still moved along, and I've done a few things to try and help them. And at this point, they're functioning and they're doing their focus groups, and so they've got a grid that they sent out of who's gonna be running focus groups and so forth. So,
One thing that we also ought to probably touch on, where do we want to meet next time?
I thought you decided and told us.
Did I?
No, I mean, you have, I don't know.
I have been.
I just go to whatever.
The reason I say that is, we met at the Y once, and we had a lot of people from School 44 show up, so that worked out well. And we've had some meetings at the library, but unfortunately, the library has early closing hours, and as you can see, we tend to be long-winded.
And the librarian retired.
And the librarian
We used to sit there and
retired.
wait for us.
Now that she's retired, maybe she'll come to the meetings and keep the place open. Finding some place that can hold everybody. I'm fine with this place, but there any thoughts of places that one thing that I'd like to do at some point is try to meet at some of the schools, but
Yeah.
we need to get principals to pretty much invite us.
Once
No, well, if
I
they
talked
don't-
to Ms. Thomas, I have a real good feeling that she would not have a problem with that.
Yeah, if you could.
Because she's looking
Bruce
to
could-
network with the
Yeah, she's
neighborhood. Yeah, so yeah, if
Could
you
you-
give her.
Well, she sounds
talk,
wonderful.
Yeah.
She lives
Because I
right
know
in the
there was one
neighborhood
year-
also. She lives right
Yeah.
on Seward
Could-
Street. She
Principal-
grew up.
Could you
Who took
check
over
with
from
her
I do
and,
that
you
tomorrow.
know, usually we try to meet the
Yeah.
first,
That other one, yeah.
Yeah.
the first week of the month.
Okay.
And,
She went to school number 19.
I'm
And
flexible.
she grew up, and she still lives.
She lives on
Oh,
Seward
on
Street,
Sawyer
so
Street.
she's.
Oh,
She
that's
went to
beautiful.
19.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah,
It
so
do-
I'm
it
sure
That's why
it
she
won't
has
be
a passion.
problem.
It doesn't have to be Wednesday night, it could be any night of
That's
the
what
week.
she has a
Usually
passion
when
and
she-
Cedars.
So if we were meeting there, we'd be going to these parking lots here, I take it?
Yes, I'm parking right in
And you
front
know,
of
I
the
think
school
the other
'cause
thing
there's,
is too, because
doing
trying
it.
to get
Okay.
parents to start coming, I
Uh-huh.
think that's what you're
And I
really
haven't been
interested
going
in,
to the
is a form
three
of,
meetings
a
because
different
it's
form of
kind of a
communication.
conflict of this.
Because
Uh-huh.